Okay, good afternoon. My name is Syed Tariq Anwar. I'm a co-chapter advisor, American Marketing Association, and the primary chapter advisor is over there, Dr. Kelley. And very briefly, we have President Ben Sprout, AMA, and then Sam Spall, he is Vice President Membership. But before I introduce our distinguished panel, they came from Lubbock, and Matt is from Amarillo. I just want to share with you some data, but briefly, this chapter has been in place for the last 6-7 years. It's an award-winning chapter for the last 3 years from Chicago as well as from WT. We have done a lot of programs, and the main purpose is to help you educate. We do not want to teach in our classrooms. We also want to make sure that we share our knowledge with all kinds of audiences. But I sincerely thank all the high officials from Old Main, deans, vice president, and I'm glad that chief police is also here because now you can see this topic is so diverse. It attracts and it impacts almost every industry in the country and every country in the world. So that's why we have this session. And we always pick those topics which are timely and useful. So let me share with you some data very quickly. All your telephones are 4Gs. 5G is coming, some cities. AT&T provide 5Gs as we were discussing, 19 cities, and 5 more are coming. It's not available here. Verizon provides 11 cities. It needs a different infrastructure and it needs a different system. But one data which is mind-boggling, by 2035, and this I got from the internet, it's about $12 trillion will be added to the global economy by 5Gs. So you can see how important this is. So $750 billion every year will be added. And which countries are the main beneficiaries? Of course, United States, Western Europe, but there are many emerging markets. They will also get benefit, including India, Pakistan, Turkey, all these countries. So 5G is going very fast. 22 million jobs will be created. When you look at the data, it may go a little bit up or down, but most probably it's going to go up, the way consumption is. How about cybersecurity? Very important. That's why these gentlemen are here from Lubbock. It is $124 billion industry. Just 15 years ago, we were discussing one time, it was nothing. So that's why there is a huge amount of impact, and you will see, you will witness. So that's why we are here to discuss. But there are lots of rules. There are lots of new industries emerging just out of 5G and cybersecurity and cloud computing and network security and you name anything. So that's why it relates to almost every business class we teach. It relates to almost every discipline we have. So that's why we have these people. But let me introduce you to our first speaker, Matt Carpenter. He's from Amarillo, and he owns, along with other gentlemen, they own Amarillo Wireless. And they started it 7 years ago. And at that time, I met him about 7 years ago. They had, and we were discussing, they had 75 subscribers. Today, they are hitting 6,200 subscribers in 30 cities. In fact, a friend of mine told me that he worked with Matt about 10 years ago in another company, and Matt at that time was known as the boy wonder. And the reason was because he was very smart.
He was good looking too.
So Matt is from here. We are very proud that he runs a very successful company, and it's right from Amarillo, Texas, Panhandle. Mr. Cyrus driver, he's WT's own. He graduated 20 years ago. He has worked for Hitachi, Siemens, HP, Lucent, Bell Labs, Nortel Networks, and he was also the president of NTS in Lubbock. So he got his MBA from WT, and he also has Bachelor of Engineering from Bangalore University in India. So basically, these two gentlemen will talk about all the issues we are dealing with, but they also have Mr. Chris Ramirez from Lubbock. He also works for Sympatico, and he takes care of their accounts. He has an MBA from our rival Texas Tech. We will still welcome you here, sir. And 218 General Business. But our first speaker will be Matt Carpenter. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yes, Matthew Carpenter. Up here says AW Broadband. We started off as Amarillo Wireless for the last 7 years or so. Back about a year ago, we dove into fiber optics, running fiber in towns, as well as owning some cable plants around Lubbock and doing cable TV. And the first person down in Lubbock that said, I don't want to work with anybody from Amarillo, I said, we're going to have to change the name. So I took all the logos in the AW and turned it into AW Broadband, and fulfills what we really do now, not just wireless. But my love is still wireless. I have a background. I wrote software for banks and credit card companies for about 18 years. And then after that, I realized, hey, there's something here with internet. There's people that live in the country that have nothing, or they're on two-way satellite, which is pretty much like having nothing. Every storm that came through, you lost your internet. It was very slow. Lots of hidden fees and charges. And so we said, we're going to start up a company that provides wireless service. I'll get on grain elevators, towers, and we've grown substantially since then. And of course, everyone here, I don't know about you, but everything I do is on a phone, on the internet, everything we do now. I have a lot of parents that come and thank us every day. Thanks for getting internet to our small town, to our farm, to our ranch out in the middle of nowhere, because my kids need to do their homework, and they do everything online now. So without the internet, you can't do homework, you can't watch movies hardly. So it's an interesting change just in the last 7 years. 7 years ago, people were happy with 5 megabit. Now it's 50 megabit minimum. And so things have changed a lot just in that time. So what I'm going to talk about is 5G. We really work hard at keeping up with new technology. It is expensive, but it's worth it because, like I said, people want 50 megabit. They want 100. They want a gig. AT&T recently started rolling out a bunch of fiber in the Amarillo area, and it's gig service. And so even though they may only use 20 megs at night, they've got a full gig to play with, a full 1,000 megabit. But I wanted to go over some of the things about 5G because that is the next technology coming up. And we are actually looking into this technology. We're getting ready to start some beta testing. But let's talk about it really quick. It's the 5th generation of cellular wireless. So there's 4G LTE, 3G, 2G, 1G. Each one built on the technology, the protocols, the speed, what you could do with it. And with each generation, obviously it's gotten much better. At this point, we're running into the 5G. Initial standards were set at the end of 2017. Last time I talked to a vendor, things were still changing even as of a couple of months ago, little tweaks. So a lot of the vendors, even AT&T, Verizon, those guys that have 5G going up on towers, they're having to make changes because the industry is still making small tweaks and changes. That's why some of my vendors aren't ready to deploy it yet because things are still changing. 3 big positives with 5G, greater speeds. I saw some 10 and 20 megabit examples, gigabit rather. It was amazing speeds. It really moves us into, you don't need fiber to your house. A 5G connection would work, or to your business. Lower latency. If you play video games, latency is everything. Obviously, on regular cell, your latency can be 20 to 30 milliseconds. We try to keep ours from your home all the way to Dallas at around 12 to 13 millisecond latency. The lower the latency, the quicker things respond back to you. And 5G is a great step in that direction. Video games, VR, all that kind of stuff will behave and perform much better on the lower latency. You can connect more devices, IoT, Internet of Things. These are sensor smart devices. I've seen a lot of new technologies coming out where they track cattle as they meander around fields with IoT, pumps, and I talk a little bit about that on another slide, but we've had farmers come to us and say, I've got all these devices out here, how can I watch them? They call it SCADA data, but those are the Internet of Things with sensors. Interestingly enough, the 4G LTE that we have today, 4G, is still required to make that initial connection for 5G to work. So your newer phones, there's about 3 or 4 different brands right now. They make a 4G connection and then they say, oh, there's 5G. Okay, let's make that one. And then you upshift to it. Starting in 2021, your phone or IoT device will automatically look for 5G and connect to it and skip the whole 4G initial connection. And then the data throughput from 4G is around 30% greater. So now, I think when I first got 4G LTE, I could speed test at about 150 megabit. It was amazing. Now with everybody on 4G LTE, it's a little harder to do that. Now I'm good to get 30 or 40 megabit. But that is a huge increase. And I think everything we do on our phones, our tablets, will just be so much quicker, obviously, at 30% greater data throughput. There are issues with 5G. The rollout from the carriers, quote, has been a messy deployment. In larger cities, it's very spotty. I've read some reviews where literally they had 5G, they go on the other side of the glass door, and they lost it. So it's very much a line of sight at this point in time. It's very much you've got to be looking at the cell site, the miniature cell site. Only a few devices are currently supported. Now this list will continue to grow. LG, OnePlus, Samsung, there's an add-on to a Motorola phone. So not everybody has it. I have read some reports that Apple is getting ready on their next version of the iPhone to support 5G. We'll see if that, how rumors can be. AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile are all deploying or getting ready to deploy. I've heard some rumors that Verizon is getting ready to do some 5G in Amarillo, so that'll be interesting. I don't know what they're going to cover, just downtown, or how much of the area they're going to cover, but I'm sure there's some fiber deployment companies around here that are pretty excited about that and starting to get ready to work with Verizon on that. The frequency or the band that's used versus the distance. And I've got a whole slide on that, and we'll cover that in much more detail in just a moment. And then everyone always asks me, what's the health risks of all this new stuff, this new 5G? Well, 5G is just a protocol, but what really people are really thinking about is the frequency it runs on. A lot of the 5G stuff runs, anywhere from 600 megahertz, and I've got a slide on this as well, all the way up into the 60 gigahertz range. The FCC says the signals, and I quote this with a quote, the signals from commercial wireless transmissions are far below the RF exposure limits at any location that is accessible to the public. So the FCC is like, it's okay. They're not concerned about it. Some people are. There's been a lot of trying to stop 5G deployment in cities because of the high density number of antennas, of towers that have to be placed to cover everybody. The studies are not clear-cut yet, and I think they're going to continue with the studies. But at this point in time, I'm not concerned about 5G. The FCC doesn't seem to be, and everyone's pushing forward on it. So this is my frequency versus distance and speed. So there are three. There's high band, mid band, and low band. I'll start off with the high band. It's the other word for it is millimeter wave. 28 gigahertz, 39 gigahertz, and 60 gigahertz. Short distances, that is the major problem. It doesn't go through trees and buildings, but it's super fast. We have been deploying some 60 gigahertz millimeter wave equipment, and I can push 4.5 gigabit at about a mile between two places. And we actually just completed a big project with the city of Amarillo and the airport. We're using 80 gigahertz, and we're shoving 10 gigabit because the cost of the fiber was so expensive. Our solution was a much cheaper solution for the city of Amarillo. So the speeds are there. The high frequency, the high band, the speeds are there. It's what everybody wants. It's what everybody needs. but unfortunately the first tree will block your signal, the first piece of glass. So that's where we go into mid-band. That's 1 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz. You get a much longer distance, a mile or more. You do get penetration into the buildings, and it uses the current cell sites that's already deployed. So they don't have to put up a whole lot of other microsites. And your speeds are up there in the 1 gig range. Low band, which is 1 gigahertz below, so 600 megahertz up to 1 gig. The distances are great. You have really good distance, your line of sight, you don't have to have that. It'll penetrate buildings, current cell sites, but your speeds are a little limited, 100 megabit. So you can see from this graph here, AT&T, you've got Verizon. Where are they? Are they in the low band? Are they in the mid band? Are they in the high band? Are they kind of mixing between the two? And what's coming out? So obviously, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, they're very interested in the millimeter wave. They want to get 500 megs. They want to get 800 megs to your phone, but they've got to put up lots of cell sites everywhere. So one of the things is, how are we going to use 5G as a company? So AW Broadband, we've got, like I said, a couple of vendors that are very interested in doing 5G and doing some beta tests with us. So we have a current 4G LTE system. It's not designed for telephone usage. It's designed for fixed wireless homes, businesses. They can run off this. It goes through trees. The nice thing is that vendor is ready to go 5G. So as soon as the standards are set, we can move our equipment into the 5G world and start not just 100 megabit, but hopefully 3 to 5 to even up to a gig of bandwidth. New 5G system will support the next decade or two of technology. So all the IoT devices, everything coming out, 5G will support. I had kind of a list of a few things: farm equipment, water sensors, and other IoT devices. There is a lot of them. How much water's in the tank? It goes on and on with all the IoT devices that 5G will support. Just shoot your wireless out there and gather all that information back. I've even heard about refrigerators and all kinds of things in your house that'll be IoT. Of course, for me, it's home internet, competing with cable and fiber. I want to be competition with cable and fiber. I do a little bit now, but with 5G, I see a huge shift in being able to say, well, you don't have fiber at your house, you have cable. You don't like your cable company? I can put you on my 5G system and give you 300 megs. And they're very excited about this. So wireless ISP usage. So this is how I use it today. 4G LTE on 3.6 gigahertz, they call it CBRS. Ready for 5G. I can do 100 megabits on 4G, but I can do a gig with 5G. That's a huge difference. It's not just, for me, it's not just changing protocols, it's buying another piece of hardware to go with it. And I can do a distance of 5 miles. This is one of my LTE, this is called an eNode B, E and B, and this is servicing a whole town with about 100 customers on it. I can't wait to put my 5G radio up underneath it and really crank up the speeds. This is a current site. Actually, this is going from a grain elevator to another building in a small town. This runs at 60 gigahertz. It's a point to multi-point. I have a full gig of speed to this client, which they've never had before. They had, I believe, 8 megs on their previous ISP. I had to have clear line of sight, and I have about a 600 meter max distance. So as you can see, I'm gearing up to shift over to 5G with 60 gigahertz. So as we start to deploy this, my next thing will be to convert this over to 5G. It's just as soon as I can buy it from my vendors. So the future, what am I looking for the future? Well, I don't know how many of you know this. Have you ever heard of Facebook? Well, Facebook Tariq, Facebook got together with some other companies and they made a new protocol called Tariq. And it runs on millimeter wave, 60 gigahertz. 5G is going to be added into this hardware mid-2020. So I've got about 5 or 6 months to prepare. A gigabit speeds to home and business, redundant mesh system, major competitor to cable and fiber. That's a great graphic at the top. The houses are all interconnected to each other. So instead of having to run fiber or cable, ditch under the ground, spend that money, or even on telephone poles, which a lot of the new areas do not have telephone poles, we can build a mesh system with those little white boxes on top of a house, and they all connect together, and you have a gig speed down into your house. Add 5G, you have even more potential of higher than gig speeds because now you've gone to the 5G mode. This is where I'm excited. I have 6 months to prepare for this. So we're gearing up and getting ready for it. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Carpenter?
I have one quick question. So I believe I had read somewhere that some of the bandwidths that they were considering using are currently used by weather satellites or some sort of weather technology, and that they were worried that if they did take those bandwidths, that it might affect weather prediction capabilities. Do you know anything, or if that?
Well, so the FCC has been looking at some of the bands around 3 and 4 gigahertz. Satellite uses a lot of those for uplink to the satellite, but also to pull weather radar down or weather maps and things down. I know that the satellite industry is very concerned about losing access to those frequencies. So the FCC is actually talking about splitting that apart. Of course, things with the FCC change every month, and so keeping up with it. We've already started to use some stuff around 3.5 and 3.6 gigahertz, and we're sharing that with the current people that own it, and it's worked out really well. From my point of view, I need the spectrum so that I can bring on more customers and get more bandwidth out there. But everybody's got, the satellite companies don't want to lose their bandwidth, and I completely, their channels, and I completely understand that. So I know the FCC is being very careful to make sure incumbents are not just completely, knocked off the channel and can't do their business.
What about global competitors or other countries? Would they be competing in that same space, or?
The same frequencies?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, a lot of the higher frequency stuff like this doesn't go very far, and so other countries may have completely different rules, and so, but we're not going to interfere with each other just because of distances. So it doesn't go that far.
Who do you get your equipment from, or are you creating it from scratch yourself?
No, we have different vendors we buy our equipment from. A couple of vendors, one is called Radwin out of Israel, Telerad out of Israel. We buy different vendors, whatever makes sense in that area that we're deploying. So we use, I think, 8 different vendors now of different equipment. But yeah, I don't make anything from scratch.
Okay.
we do.
Yes. You said the high band, like 5G can't penetrate through walls. How would that work in like your house? Would you have to get a little thing for each room, or?
For the 5G?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things. One, they can turn power levels up, but the FCC is going to try to keep that down, obviously. You don't want to cause any harm with having high power levels. But the high band, the 60 gigahertz and those frequencies, they just don't go through hardly anything. So you'd have to have an antenna on the outside of the house to bring the 5G into the house and go to like a router or something. That's my guess is what Verizon, these guys are probably going to do in the future, is you'll have a little device that sits outside your house. Yes?
You already covered the health concerns and everything like that, but what you just said, as this gentleman said, you need to get the 60 gigahertz, then your slide showed that you needed 600 meters of cleared space. For that 5G to actually work properly, do you have to install more towers and closer intervals? And if that's the case, wouldn't that increase the frequency, radio wavelength frequencies and everything like that?
Yeah, so the right now they're saying every 2 telephone poles, every 2 to 3 telephone poles, they'd have to have another cell site, basically, a miniature cell site. And that would be transmitting, out 60 gigahertz or whatever frequency they decide to choose on of the higher band. Obviously, the more of them, the more RF radiation is out there, but it's such short distance that you would see this cell site here, but that one that's 2 or 3 telephone poles down would be so weak you probably wouldn't even see it at that point. So it's not like they're very low power. 60 gigahertz is actually absorbed by oxygen very quickly. That's why it only goes around 600 to 800 meters, because oxygen absorption is so high on the curve. So that they've got to put these more often, but they're going to space them out enough that you're not going to be able to see 2 of them real well. You're going to see one pretty good and this one very weak. So, yeah, go ahead.
4G, where are they at right now compared to if they were to put the 5G up every 2 towers? How far are they spread out right now?
4G, obviously they're not running anything up in the high band. With 4G, it's all lower band and mid band stuff. Those cell sites are usually 1 mile to 2 miles apart from each other, and they call it a cell site because they mark these circles where they're going to hit, and they're perfectly spaced out so they don't interfere with each other. But they're usually about 1 mile apart, maybe a little bit less. It depends on the density. If you get into a place like where the stadium is in Amarillo, they're going to have a cell site close to that just to cover the density of all the people that are there during the games. So it all comes down to the RF engineer plotting it out and saying, okay, we're going to need to put another cell site here, even though it's only 1/2 mile from this one. The density of the phones in this one area requires it. Yes.
I have a question since we are WT University. What and computer science in particular, but any engineering students, what could students help you here? I couldn't really see from the presentation. Do you have any idea what this universal education, like engineering, math, computer science, could help with your projects?
I believe, I look for people that are good with, mostly with the RF engineering aspects. Those are the kind of people I look for. People that are good with fiber optics, the RF side of how things work, planning and where do I need to put a tower to reach the most number of people, and much how the cell phone companies do their thing. So those are the kind of of course, I haven't really looked at students, but people that are ready for a full-time job. That's the thing I look for is somebody that's going to be able to come in and really sit down and help me figure out where do we want to put a tower, where would be the best place for density. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, because students' goal, right, is to have the employment, and where is that possibility in your company?
Yeah,
that's where it is.
That's
Thank
where
you
it
very
is.
much.
Yeah. As we grow, yeah, definitely. Yes.
When you started, how big was your team when you started? Was it just you? Was it 3 or 4 people? Do you specialize in something that someone else doesn't, or that type of thing?
When we started about 7.5 years ago, there were 2 of us, and we took the vendors sent us the radios, and we unpacked them in a garage, and we threw them in the dumpster down the alley, and we went out after hours and did installs on people's houses. I know I did about 300 of them myself, including yours, and back in the day, and then we started putting in employees and growing the company pretty quick. So we're at 47 employees now, and expanding into small towns constantly around the Panhandle. So we just expanded into Sunray this week, actually.
So a lot of people sitting here today, they'll be, getting into the market soon. What do you recommend to them? Because now you are a successful company doing very well. Any suggestions to this group?
I believe a lot of ours was we focused on one thing. We took what we knew, which was RF, wireless. We took that and we embraced it and we went full guns with it. And we didn't get off onto other things, managed services of IT and other things. Now, since then, we've done telephone and television as well. But our core, we had to pick our core and really focus on our core. And that's what I recommend, is pick that one thing you really love, the one thing you're really good at, and focus on that. Because if we had have gone off onto different tangents while we were first building the company, we wouldn't be where we are. Because we would have wasted time and resources and money on other things.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me back, Dr. Anwar. And thank you to all the esteemed staff members and folks out here, and of course, students. 25 years ago, I was sitting right there. In fact, this room wasn't there. Trust me, it wasn't there. You guys are so pampered, really pampered. And then 25 years ago, Dr. Anwar told me, you just do your homework, Cyrus, and you'll become a CEO, I promise you. And see, it happened. So do your homework, okay? So today I don't have any slides, but I'm going to be talking about 5G and cybersecurity. My undergrad degree is in laser engineering and fiber optics. That's what I did, and worked for many years as an engineer. And then I came over and did my MBA here, and I found things called spreadsheets and finance and accounting, and I said, okay, let me move to the dark side. So now I'm in the dark side. But actually, it's really good because you get to understand how things work, right? So as an engineer, you're pretty geeky, and you want to play with new toys and 4G, 5G, 6G, and all those fun things. And then you see the actual cost of doing the business. Why is it growing? Why is it not growing? All those good and bad things. So one of the things I really love is, as you can see, I love shoes. But I really like orange shoes. So is there anybody wearing orange shoes? Come up in front of the whole class. That's you, man. She's okay. We got a challenge for you. Okay. Put your fingers like this. Not like this. That's where you're gonna hold something. Hold this. Okay. No. She loves money. Do this. Okay. And when I drop it, you gotta catch it. If you catch it, it's yours. This is what happens when your brain is nice and young. For us old guys, it's like, oh my God, try it again.
But she got it.
I'll give it to her, don't worry. She'll even get interest. So the reason she got it, I'll tell you why, because this is the $5 note. I was asking for a $1 note. There's a difference between a $1 and a $5 note. And let's try it again anyway. So let's bring it out. She's so close to it, it's like, I want that money. Okay, open your hand a little bit. No, what I did was actually, here you go, ma'am. I was actually, you got to use a $1 note. And the reason is very simple. Like he mentioned about 5G, right? Is a reflex from the time you see the thing moving, it goes into your brain, into your eyes, and then it goes to your brain. And from your brain, it comes back down to your fingers and says close. That whole round trip that is there is 200 milliseconds. Think about it. 200 milliseconds is 0.2 seconds, and you think that's pretty fast. Ever tried swatting a fly or catching a fly? They are 4 times faster than you. 4 times faster than you. That's the reason why you typically cannot catch a fly in midair. It's called the reflex. It's just the amount of time it takes for us to process stuff. It's a big body, it takes a long time to go there, but the fly, the body is really small, and the way it's structured is that it can directly send its impulses to the wings and limbs directly from the brain. That's why you can't catch flies that easily, right? So it's 200 milliseconds. In 5G, it is 1 millisecond. 5G is 200 times faster than what you were doing right now. That's how fast 5G is. I mean, it's game-changing, absolutely game-changing. Now, therefore, you have to couple up, and one of the things is, how many of you folks have driven a Tesla on autopilot? One day you will, I promise you will, right? Because almost all cars will be like that, right? And those cars are now able to drive by themselves, and they're surrounded by regular cars like the cars that we have, right? But imagine if all the cars were autonomous, and you are driving, say, from Amarillo, and you're going to go to Dallas, Texas. And you put it in there, say, Dallas, Texas. The car is constantly pulling in information from the internet or from whatever database you have to say that there's a car now coming from Lubbock, Texas, that's going to get onto the freeway at exactly this 100th of a second, based upon the way that person is driving, weather conditions, road conditions, and everything, and we are going to intersect each other after an hour and a half unless I move back one lane and this person moves another lane. That is a level of computation that will be done. So a guy who just left his house in Tyler, Texas, and East Texas, that car will start watching out for all cars that within the next 3 hours that's going to intersect his car. It'll be done automatically, and you'll be sitting in the car and just reading a newspaper, and it'll all be calculated real time. Now imagine you set up 2 cars. Imagine thousands of cars going in thousands of directions and people changing their mind at the last minute. Oh, let's pull over for a Starbucks. All that is taken into account. That's the reason why you need that latency. Latency is basically the gap between the time you trigger something and from the time something happens. So you can see the difference. I mean, it's going to be 200 times faster. This is 5G. 5G is basically made for a couple of things, 2 things. One is to accommodate a lot more devices, right? So you go home, you have 4G at home. Have you noticed that once you have more than like 4 or 5 people watching Netflix, everything starts becoming really slow, right? There's only so much juice, if you may call it, coming out into the system, right? Is the amount of concurrent streams goes down. And then the speeds goes down for each concurrent stream. So each person starts seeing degradation because you got another 4th person and a 5th person. There's a thing called quality of service and all this other stuff which I won't get into. But the important thing here in 5G, you can have 100 times more people watching Netflix in your home and all of them with the same level of quality of service, right? So a typical high definition 4K movie, if you download it over your current 4G or Wi-Fi network, it'll take maybe around 10 minutes, 7 minutes. 5G networks, 4.5 seconds. Think about it. That's how fast you can download it, right? So that's important, is number of people watching 5G at a certain time, and then the other one is the quality of service and how fast these things can happen. So basically, you're looking at the future of everything going on, like you mentioned, on IoT, which is Internet of Things. So your IoT is your toaster. It's anything connected to the internet is called IoT. It would be IoT and the Internet of Things. And so are things like your watch. And then there's going to be a blood pressure monitor on you, and there's going to be a blood sugar monitor on you that's constantly giving you information. And the billions and billions of bits and bytes of data that is coming through, and you have to analyze that, or else your car is going to crash. No, really. I mean, you're going to be totally hands off the front wheel because there's no way that you can manage all these things in the future. Right now, the way you should ride on I-27 is, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to dare this guy. I'm going to tailgate him till he moves, till he moves, till he moves. That car in front is not going to care whether you're tailgating him because that car has got no emotion. Think about it. Think about it. A lot of things will change in the way you drive your car, and all you guys are in an age range where you will see that future happen. It'll be a reality. And what will be even more of a reality is when a 20-year-old today is going to be 80 years old tomorrow, that will be the only way you will know your world. You will forget about this world that you're currently sitting in, turning on the car keys and hearing that big gas engine revving up. That's all gone, right? It'll be like the days of the buggy. And it'll be at a time when you would be 80 years old and you'll be, thank God this was invented. Now nobody has to drive me to work or drive me to the bazaar or drive me for a movie, right? Just pick up the phone or just think about it, and next thing you know, it'll be there. So all these things are enabled by a thing called by 5G, 6G, 7G, whatever is going to come out in the future. And they're going to be married with a bunch of things. It's not only just speed and watching movies and cars being autonomous and working with each other. It will actually help your quality of life. It truly will. It will even create things like genetic engineering changes for pharmaceuticals. Now you go to Walmart to go and get your Z-Pack or antibiotics because you have a cold or something like that. Very soon, the moment your body detects that's happening, that information will be sent via a high-speed wireless connection like 5G or something else in the future. And they will actually make a special variation of the Z-Pack or the antibiotic pill based upon your genetic marker. That's why you say, like, I've been on antibiotics for 3 days and nothing has happened. I'm still suffering. Well, this guy, he just took one pill and he's feeling much better. All those quick calculations will be done in a microsecond by quantum computing. And I'll get to quantum computing pretty quickly. And that'll be done before you even reach your Walmart pharmacy or wherever it is, or unless they come to your doorstep. But it'll be something which is designed just for you, your genetic makeup, your ethnic background, your age, your diet that you've just been having for the last few days. So it's the most potent medicine that you could ever have. See how much the world is going to change. It is happening. It's happening already right now. It's happening in labs. It's already been in FDA prototypes. So that's going to become a reality. And soon it's just not going to be just speeds. It's not going to be just autonomous cars. It's going to be all these type of things. Your life will change. I guarantee you that. You'll have no option. Like my dad keeps saying, I don't want all this stuff. Like, no, Dad, sorry. The train has left the station. You got to use it, okay? So that is the future of these type of technologies. So 5G is something which is going to be common. I remember I launched 3G with the old singular wireless, which is no longer there. It's I think that was 2001 in 33 states, and it was fantastic. We got the flip phones with the small cameras in them. There were no cameras before, right? I know you guys don't remember those days because you all didn't exist. But eventually, you're looking at a lot of information going through the system. And now we'll come to the second part of the information that's going through the system, and that's for cybersecurity. So just to introduce myself, I am the president and CEO of Sympatico Systems. It's a cybersecurity company based in Lubbock, Texas. We've got offices in California, in Los Angeles, in Dallas. We have points of presence in Chicago, Miami, East Coast, Virginia, Washington, D.C., just all over the place. And the reason is, and by the way, this is West Texas's own cybersecurity company, born and bred here in West Texas. I am so very proud of being here and being part of that heritage of West Texas, and also be able to go global with this type of technology. So what's about cybersecurity? And the gentleman sitting there, he's like, hey, I heard the word security, I'm going to attend that lecture. The things are going to change, guys, on cybersecurity. You do not know this, you may not feel it right now, but if you ask somebody what's the big war that's happening right now, and they say, North Korea is showing nukes and this and that, showing nukes, and everybody's got nukes, and this is like the guy with the biggest arrow and the biggest bow in the old days, and now sometimes becomes stale because everybody's got nukes and everybody's got this, so everybody's posturing. It's just drama. Truly, it is. You remove your nuke, I'll remove mine, and we'll all both go to hell. Nobody wants that, right? What's happening today all the time, guys, is that there's a cyber warfare that's been happening nonstop. It's happening even now. In fact, right now, I must tell you, Matt, we were just chatting with Matt and Dr. Anwar at the JBK in front of Witch. And we were talking to Matt about cybersecurity. And Mr. Ramirez went on a scan, and he did a scan of a cybersecurity profile for Matt, and we came up with a whole bunch of attacks that is there on this gentleman. I looked at, there it is. I can tell you right now each one of you guys, how many attempts are being made right now. I just need your email address. I have it on my phone. I can actually see right now how many times people have attempted to hack into my daughter's laptop, my son's laptop. One day when I went to Midland, that was I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. Since breakfast till that time at 1 o'clock, which was my meeting, I just showed that to my client and I said, look, my daughter's laptop, if somebody's tried to some bots have tried to hack into it 3,400 times, and it was between 8 a.m. in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my daughter just goes to Texas Tech. She's not a rocket scientist. She's not doing some secret stuff. She doesn't work for the FBI. She's not Donald Trump, that's for sure. No, but that's important. The question people say is like, I'm not that important. They don't care if you're important or not because it's not a human being doing it. It's a bot. It's a piece of software that replicates itself so fast and it spreads around the world billions of times a second and will just touch you. How many people are there on the planet Earth? 7.3 billion? They've got like 3-4 trillion bots going out at the same time at any second now. So it's just like shooting fish in a barrel, and you're the fish. So cybersecurity is so important, guys, because what's going to happen is, hey, I've got cybersecurity. I've got not an antivirus. What is not an antivirus or McAfee, by the way? I've got nothing against those companies, right? But I just want to let you know what cybersecurity is. That lock on the door, if there was no lock on this door, you would walk right, you turn the handle and you walk right inside that. That's antivirus. So is that going to stop somebody from getting inside the door? No, I'll just kick it down. He knows. He brings his SWAT team in there. He just kicks it down. He's in. So once you're in, then what you have ADT or home security with those motion sensors, right? And they send you a trigger and say, somebody's in your home. The first thing you have to realize, guys, is he's already in your home. Just think about it. So you're like, he's in my home. Great job, Mr. Burglar. He's in my home already. So what are you going to do about it? Oh, it sets up a motion sensor, and then it calls you, and then you give it like a few minutes or a few seconds or whatever it is, and then after that, they make a phone call to your house. By the time he's having a party, he knows I'm already in. I've got like 4 minutes to burgle this place. I'll do it, because that's what he does for a living, right? He knows what is happening. So number one, your not an antivirus is dead, is useless. Or your McAfee or whatever antivirus that you bought or downloaded, that's useless, right? So it comes, you're already inside, you're already infected. And when I'm saying coming inside, means your laptop is infected, your cell phone infected, your fancy Apple Watch and your Samsung Watch is infected. If you're carrying a glucometer that's giving nonstop information on diabetes, that's infected. If you've got a blood pressure monitor and sensor, that's infected. If you're driving your favorite Tesla from Amarillo to Dallas, that is hijacked. Think about it. So I don't no longer have to stand like the old days and take a gun, wait for some sucker to come up by the red light and like get out of the car. No. I'll be sitting far away in another country, and I can track you down and lock you in your car, and I'll take you to a place where I can have somebody mug you and he can send me a piece of the profits. You got to have cybersecurity not on your computer, on your door lock. That's on your door lock, on your fridge, on your... He mentioned something. In Amarillo has got IoT. IoT is, there's a lot of cattle industry in Amarillo, actually in the bushland area. And they have put tags that are working actually on 3G, actually on 1G. Small tags, they're very cheap on the ears of the cattle. So it can tell the owner that, your so-and-so cow or calf is dehydrated, needs this and needs that, and you can just hone in. And they actually send a drone. They don't go out there anymore. The cowboys don't go out there anymore on horses and rope around the cattle and find number 156 needs to be given a shot. No, this is a gone. You have a small drone that costs $60 that goes directly to where the cattle is. And it's done 24 hours a day, is autonomous, is very cheap, it's $60. And it goes and then it gives it a shot, comes back and takes a reading again, and the farmer or the cowboy is sitting at home and watching TV. That's in Amarillo today. All this can be jeopardized with cybersecurity. So when I mention about he's already in your house, it means all the stuff that is happening is already been compromised, right? And then the next thing that you do in cybersecurity is once you come in there, then the question is catch the thief. So guess what? The phone dials 911, they send somebody there, and the guy knows the phone is dialing. He's not stupid. And he's like, okay, it's dialing. 4-minute response time, 3-minute response time. Unless he's lucky and he's right by the corner, then you had it. So in cybersecurity, it's the same thing. Once you have somebody inside your computer, inside the ear tag of your cattle, inside your Tesla car, inside your watch, now you have to quarantine that so it doesn't start infecting everything else. This whole platform that is there is done by a company that does cybersecurity, something like what we do, right here in West Texas. And it can be monitored, it is monitored 24/7 by guess what? No human beings like at ADT is monitored by artificial intelligence. So AI is watching. So the cop is AI, and actually the robber is AI too, because AI is what is attacking you. So when you see these sci-fi movies and say, like, hey, Rise of the Machines, guys, I guarantee you this, in the next 50 years, and you guys will be there to watch this. It'll be the rise of the machines. This is not sci-fi movies from Steven Spielberg. This was happening today. Machines are controlling us all the time. It is. You feel that you got cruise control and it goes up and down every time you put a cruise control at 65 or 55. That's a machine controlling you. That's outdated stuff. This is the new stuff. So if you want to be really careful, you got to have a full envelope of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not just an antivirus. And then some of them say, hey, listen, I got this really long string of alphanumeric numbers and codes for cybersecurity. Nobody can beat that. Of course, there are some other folks who still put password 1, 2, 3, 4, or I love you and all that stuff. You might as well just do that. Because the world of quantum computing is come up. That's a third part. Third part is quantum computing. Quantum computing, if you have a string of 26 symbols, alphanumeric symbols, spaces, hashes, all that stuff, it takes around 5,000 years today of computing power to be able to crack that. Up to 5,000 years. Statistically, nobody sit there and calculate for 5,000, but statistically, it takes 5,000 years to crack that code. In quantum computing, it's cracked in 4 seconds. So what are you going to do? You're going to put a password that is 5,000 characters? No. So things are changing, guys. Your complex passwords are going to be useless. Quantum computing will take care of that. In terms of security, cybersecurity is being run by AI. The good guys are AI and the bad guys are AI. So it's going to be, and what is AI and what is artificial intelligence? Guys, it's very simple. It's pure math. 25 years ago when I came here, there was a Dr. Kelley who was heading the computer science department. There was one of the professors who taught neural networks at that time. It's the same thing. We're going back to the basics of mathematics. So if you think that I'm doing physics, I'm doing engineering, I'm doing medicine, guess what? It's all going to come down to mathematics. So if anybody's doing mathematics, if anybody's doing computer science, coding, and all that stuff, you're basically playing artificial intelligence. You're basically playing with plain old mathematics, right? So what I'm trying to get back here is, do not think that what I'm learning in college is going to be outdated. The basics are the basics, guys. It's the fluff around it that changes with time. And now things have become a lot more complicated, and complicated in terms of mathematics. Whether you're doing medicine or engineering or whatever it is, you're still back to mathematics. So focus on your time in college. That's really, I mean, people think like, oh, going to college is such a waste of time anymore because I can just go and make money. I can open up a startup. God bless you if you can do that. But for the regular folks who don't have that much talent, you have to be very relevant a few years from now. So pay attention to what's happening in college. You got the world at your fingertips. You got the internet. You got cell phones, mobile phones. You got high-speed internet. You got 5G. You got wonderful things happening to you. Be careful while you're on the internet. Don't get carried away by putting stuff on the internet that you think that is cool. It's all going to be profiled against you one day or the other. The only time you're going to worry about something is against you. Something is for you. You're not going to worry about it. And it will remember you. Artificial intelligence does not forget. Because every second that passes, every microsecond that passes, it's learning, it's getting smarter. It's happening today. It's been happening for the last 4 years or 5 years. IBM, Google, Microsoft, all of them have it. They call it deep mind and other things. So we at Lubbock, we use artificial intelligence and we track everything that's happening all the time. Just a last example. Typically, when somebody infects your computer, your phone, your watch, or whatever it is, it stays dormant for around 272 days, 250 to 272 days. If I'm going to hack into your computer, I'm not going to make it very evident for you that I'm in there. I'm going to sit there for 3-4 months, and I'm going to mine all the information systematically. And what's the information? Hey, you sent an email to your brother. Okay, let's go and check out his credit card. So you send an email, it's infected, goes to your brother, to your sister, to your friend, dog, cat. Everybody gets that information. Anybody's connected to your fridge. There's a time when I can lock you. I would be able to lock you inside your house if you cannot leave mechanically. We can lock you inside. You be locked inside your house. You can turn up the heat, make your life very miserable for you. Basically, I made your house your own prison. I imprisoned you in your car, in your house, and I can shut down your garage door opener. I can shut down your phones. I can do all this. I can wreak havoc, and it's all for free. You don't have to pay a lot of money for this. That's the worst part about this situation. So be very careful about your security. That's really important. It's going to be mainstream. In fact, even if you're dating somebody who doesn't have cybersecurity, don't date her. Because you're going to pay the price, trust me, right? So we've covered cybersecurity, we've covered 5G, which is basically transport, we've covered cybersecurity, we've covered quantum computing. That's the new world we are all in. And you'll have a better thief, then you get a better policeman, then you're a better thief and a better policeman. That drama will continue. It's been going on for thousands of years. It's just a new style, and it's happening all the time. So be careful about your laptops, be careful whom you give things to, all those type of things. Facial recognition on your phone is so cool. You saw what happened to China, what China did 2 days ago, and I know this is not China, but the world is moving in that direction whether you like it or not. Here we have legislation, here this is a democracy, so we have got checks and balances. The question is, once you touch the internet, you have checks and balances, but the other people don't, and they don't care. China has made it mandatory as of 3 days ago or 4 days ago that everybody wants to open up a cell phone account or wants to get a credit card has to go and do a face scan. You go to Bank of America, face scan, and it's stored in the government database. Communist country, totally understand. That's the way it is done. The best part is the people who are doing artificial intelligence, cybersecurity threats, sending you bugs and bots, they are not from these, they could be from these places, but they are mainly from companies. They're companies like our companies. People go to work every day there. Their offices, they have a budget. They have CEOs, they have CFOs, they have 401ks. It's like going for a regular job. They get paid in Bitcoin. But it's a regular job. It's an industry. It's not the hacker sitting there with the hoodie and like doing this stuff. It used to be 6 years ago. That guy was 12 years old. And he made so much money. Now he's 18 years old. And he started up his own startup, which is robbing you guys. I'm telling you that. So this is something which is happening all the time. We in cybersecurity, we can catch that. We can catch a bot that is there hiding in our systems for maybe around 200 days. We can catch it within 4.5 minutes. That's pretty good. 4.5 minutes to basically find out what's wrong on your entire network, quarantine it, and kill it. That's what cybersecurity is all about. So you're not spreading that drama to your boyfriend or girlfriend, right? So, and the reason I said that is because sharing of information, be very careful of social media, sharing of information, emails, text messages, all those type of things sound a lot of fun. Just be aware of all these things because it could be something could be sitting dormant for 272 days and then go crazy. There's so much for doom and gloom. But bottom line of this is you've got to understand what's there in cybersecurity. I mean, these are the type of things. Cybersecurity is important because if you don't have that, you're exposed to those type of things. It's just like having a police force. Imagine if you didn't have a police force, there'll be chaos, right? So that's what cybersecurity is all about. And they're constantly evolving. Any questions?
Anwar,
Yes, sir.
how do you think blockchain technology may
Good question.
play into cybersecurity?
Good question. Actually, 2 years ago, I did the same lecture on blockchain and AI. And blockchain is a process that automates a lot of things, which will necessitate fewer serial inputs into something. Like if you want to buy something from my shop, Right now, you send me an email, you look at my website, you pay the money, but then what actually happens is your bank does my bank transfer that money because you promised me $25, and then I'm going to send you this computer for $25. That'd be nice. But send this computer to you, which means it goes to Amazon. Amazon said, get ready for somebody to do this stuff. It goes to the guy. There's a lot of that stuff happening. In blockchain, in short, what happens is the moment he says, do it, buy that camera in front of me. The moment he does that, all systems wake up at the same times and handshake. Boom, done. So I'm just trying to oversimplify it. So you don't have the serial involvement of this versus that. Now imagine if things are being shipped around the world. Everything wakes up at the same time, does the transaction, boom, goes down. So instead of having something shipped, it takes you like around 2 or 3 days to put it. Let's say you want to buy a large piece of furniture from China, it's going to come here. The moment you click yes, the factory knows that the guy was supposed to transfer it from the factory in China to the port in China. He knows he's expecting that. He's already sending somebody there. He's not waiting for an email. You think email is fast? Actually, email is not fast. It's not email, it's the people. And you're not awake all the time. You go to sleep 8 to 5. I mean, 8 to 5, you go to sleep 8 to 5. You awake 8 to 5, go to sleep from 5 to 8, right? Blockchain doesn't sleep. Blockchain is another form of AI. And that's where you have that intelligence. So the world is going to change. It's already started changing 3-4 years ago. It's going to change even faster than what's happening. So really, this is not a sci-fi movie playing out right now. This is exactly what's happening to you today. It's just that you're not aware of it. But unfortunately, when people get aware of things like cybersecurity threats, is when it's already too late. Then it becomes expensive to deploy. So just practice good hygiene. That's what we call it. We call it good internet hygiene. Use your common sense, do the right things, watch whom you're connecting with, watch how you spend your money and how you use your credit cards, all those type of things. Use common sense. You see, Cyrus said, send me $100,000. Now, of course, you laugh at it. But trust me, there are people saying, can you please open this and approve it, Cyrus, for me? And I'm thinking, this is not an email that needs to come to me. The moment I became CEO of the company, I already started getting hit by all this stuff. They're having some fun. Oh, cybersecurity guy. Okay, let me go and steal his money. Right? So just remember, practice good internet hygiene. It's very important for the future.
Cyrus, one quick question. So, Matt, I think you may also know the answer. So, is it a 5-year cycle or 10-year? So, we'll be going for 6G, 7G, 8G.
Okay, so that was a question. I remember sitting in the boardroom of T-Mobile in Washington, in Seattle, Washington, in 2001, and they asked George Stanton, who was the chairman of the board, and I was one of the VPs there. So what about 4G? And he's like, hey, just launch 3G first. The reason is you're saying 3G. G is just generation. So so we had a bunch of people that would create these algorithms that call it the next generation. When you talk to somebody from a cell phone to another, say I'm calling him on a cell phone, it goes from here to the cell tower through the entire core network. From there, it goes to that cell tower, which is close to him in New York, and he answers the phone. All that equipment, all those protocols, all the mathematics has to be upgraded to the next level. The question is I as AT&T and Verizon, I spent $20 billion, $100 billion, putting a 4G. I want my money back. You might want 7G and 8G. So this is important. As things get really, really complicated and get more expensive, it's not about, hey, let's give people 5G. Why? This isn't Mother Teresa. I want my money back. I spent $100 billion. Get me my money back. Let me make a fat profit. Then I go to my shareholders and say, hey, listen, we've got something called 6G and 7G. And then they might allow it. When you see a stock tanking after saying that word, 6G, then not ready yet, right? So that's the reason why. So the world actually moves on two levels. One is on R&D. This whole G business is all R&D. They have PhD sitting and running math. Now it is AI running math. 6G and 7G will be created by AI, faster and furiously. And when that happens, two things will happen. Actually, it'll be cheaper. You don't have to employ 300 PhDs to come up with one patent. It'll be delivered like almost any time because it's constantly learning. That's number one. The other one is can you change the entire infrastructure to 5G or to 6G and 7G? How much time it will take? Matt seeing that. It's pretty expensive. So there's a reality, what you'd like to have, then there's money, there's politics, and then there's time. That's a good question. But it'll happen, these type of things will happen. There'll be 7G and 8G.
And even 4G is still being worked on. There's category 12, there's category 13. So there's still, the 4G technology is still being upgraded.
Very true, very true. See, you see 4G LTE? You know what LTE stands for, guys? Long-term evolution, which means it's constantly changing. Long-term evolution. The magic is already in the name. Always look at the name. And when you don't understand that, just go to Google, check out LTE, long-term evolution, okay. It was actually being called CDMA 2000. I would know that because my R&D team was working on that in 2003. And it was very expensive. And we called it CDMA 2000 because US was moving towards CDMA instead of GSM. And then they decided if we keep on calling it GSM, CDMA, it's going to look like Betamax, VHS. Have you heard? There was Betamax, VHS before you guys were perhaps there. Then there was CD, DVD. Who goes and touches the DVD anymore? Flash drives. Who has flash drives? Some of you might, but eventually they'll go away, right? Same thing. That's why they call it long-term evolution. Because basically they're telling the people, please expect things will change constantly. Don't cry. Give me your money. Buy my stuff. Any question? Yes, ma'am.
So with the Equifax hack a few years ago, it's pretty safe to assume that most adults in the U.S. had their information stolen. How much lingering, additional risk do you think that poses? And do you think that society needs to think about going away from social security numbers?
Okay, so Equifax, TJ Maxx, all these guys got hacked into, right? That's just sloppy management. That is sloppy management. That is management from I hate saying this as a CEO, I can tell you the buck stops with me. And if anything like that happens under my watch, it means that I'm asleep at the wheel. The good news and the bad news. The good news is everybody learned their lessons because they lost all the big bonuses and the big money and they lost their jobs or whatever it is. But the bad news is now they're going to stop depending upon CEOs to make that call and they're going to give it to who? Artificial intelligence. AI will determine whether your company is worthwhile being on the stock exchange and demand $100 a share. Because you are not able to safeguard the information of all these people who are coming in and buying or doing the credit reports on Experian or Equifax. You see how powerful AI is going to become. It is going to become very, very powerful. And it's going to determine our lives. And we may not call it AI. IBM calls it Watson. They want to make it human and basically it's marketing. So, hey, you want to buy a Watson? But I'd rather go and buy Watson and make sure that my company is locked and loaded rather than depend upon a vice president or a president or my COO who tells me, boss, we've got it all taken care of. We spent $3 trillion on this. Oh, it's great. And it's like, okay, great. Where did he come from? Oh, he came from Harvard. He's got 3 PhDs from Harvard. Trust me, have had that happen very recently. Oh, 3 PhDs from Harvard. He just has 20 patents under his belt. We are bulletproof now. No, we are not. Because the day he graduated got his PhD, the day he got it, the very next second, AI created a lot more things. And he has been instantly, along with all the other people, including us, outdated. So the question is, how do you harness the power of AI to make it your friend? Rather than think of it as something separate, it's like a gadget. It's not a gadget. That has to be a buddy. That has to be a puppy that you walk along with everywhere, protecting you when you go out for a walk. That'll bark at everybody around you. That's your AI. Think of it as a puppy, like a big German shepherd that you carry around everywhere, who is very faithful, doesn't sleep, cares for his master all the time. That's called AI. And we will be doing that. Good questions. Any other questions? Feel like enough of doom and gloom, Cyrus. Stop it. Stop it.
Before,
thank you.
Thank you. Before we finish, Wall Street Journal, this is November 12th. They had a 16-page whole survey on 5G. Of course, by the time it came out, it was already not obsolete, but some of the things are old, as you mentioned. But consider reading it. It's available in our library. Thanks so much for everybody who came, and we had a wonderful time. Thank you again.